Hello and welcome to CNR Extra on CTTV. My name is Nanatufo Boateng. Coming up. After 2 weeks of strike by teachers across the country, government and organized labor agreed to 15% payment of cost of living allowance.
The cost of living allowance, COLA, will be paid at a rate of 15% of base pay. That the effective date for payment of the COLA is 1st July 2022.
Member of Parliament's Privileges Committee, ABA Fuseni, denies reports that the committee has written to the Electoral Commission to declare the Dom Kwabenya seat vacant.
To the effect that the clerk of Parliament has been authorized to issue a statement to the effect that the position of Honorable Adwoa Safu has been declared vacant, on the basis of which there should be a by-election, and that is the recommendation of the committee. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's an absolute pathological lie.
Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia partly blames Ghana's return to the IMF on the erstwhile Mahama administration.
Ghana has been hit with a quadruple whammy. The energy sector excess capacity payments, banking sector cleanup, COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine war.
Meridian Port Service agrees to cede 20% share of container traffic to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority from August 1 after strike by Maritime and Dock Workers Union.
Vessels are going to come with containers that are going to be apportioned along this 20% region sector.
Time now to bring you the details, but before we go into our first story, we'd like for you to know that the show is interactive, and so do send in your comments, your thoughts via the WhatsApp number 0550585832. You can also send us a comment on Facebook or tweet at us at CTTVGH. Jude Mensah Duncan is in the studio with me, and then we'll be having a conversation on the various topics as they roll up. Hi, Jude.
Hello, Nana.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Always
Good
a
to
pleasure
see you.
to be here with you.
All right, let's delve straight into our stories. And then, of course, we know what has been happening on the labor front in the past 2 weeks, where some 4 teacher unions declared a nationwide strike over demand for the payment of cost of living allowance. Now, government, together with the unions, have come to an agreement on a percentage to be paid. The details are carried in this report. Right after Duke and I will delve into a discussion on it.
Government, after a marathon of meetings, has agreed to pay organized labor 15% cost of living allowance as COLA. Organized labor has for some time now been demanding 20% COLA over concerns of increasing cost of living. This development has led to 4 teacher unions embarking on a strike since last week, with the Senior Staff Association of University Teachers, the latest labor union to declare a strike.
Now, after a crunch meeting between government and organized labor on Thursday, both factions agreed on a 15% payment of COLA. City News' Kweku Iduama Ansa monitored the meeting and filed this story.
The meeting between representatives of organized labor and government on Thursday lasted over 5 hours as both factions dialogued to find a common ground over the payment of the cost of living allowance, COLA. The meeting brought together a high-powered delegation to represent government, which included the Finance Minister and his deputy, Ken Oforiatta, and Abnao Seasari, Minister for Employment and his deputy, Ignatius Bafoewa and Bright Rekobrobe, Minister for Education, Dr. Yao Osei-Duchum, and the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, amongst others. According to City News sources, the government, led by the Finance Minister in the first engagement, proposed a 5% cost of living allowance, which was outrightly opposed by organized labor. Minutes later, government reconvened the meeting with a new proposal of 7% but was rejected vehemently. As at 6 p.m., government had proposed 10% whilst organised labour had settled on 15% cost of living allowance. This led to another caucus meeting by the government representatives. Finally, both factions agreed on a 15% COLA payable beginning July 1, 2022.
The cost of living allowance, COLA, will be paid at a rate of 15% of base pay. That the effective date for payment of the COLA is 1st July 2022. That all industrial actions underway and threats of same will be called off immediately, and that labor will return to work forthwith.
Organised labour, who were demanding 20% COLA, say they had to reach a compromise following concerns of the deplorable state of the economy.
The 15%, we believe strongly that will cushion us at least to a certain degree from the high cost of living. And we are hoping that by agreeing this, all workers who are on strike will go back to work starting from tomorrow. All those who are threatening to strike, we have managed to get them to stop. So with this, we expect to have peace back. And then together with employers, with government, and all workers of Ghana, build our country and get it to recover from the ravages of coronavirus.
When you go into any negotiation, you go in with a very open mind and in good faith. You have to listen to each party and understand where they are coming from. The government party came, or the government team came from a point where they made us understand and appreciate the difficulties they are having in terms of the financial situation of the economy. So it was not going to be in good faith for us to stand at the 20% and decide not to come down. We have made some compromises and we have reached 15%. From this meeting, we are going to issue a communique to our members and let them understand that based on the earlier communication that we set out, we are no more pursuing it because this was the ultimate goal and we have achieved same. So there's no need to go on that tangent anymore.
In good faith, the 4 teacher unions called off their strike effective today, July 14, 2022.
We have earlier on issued a statement deferring all negotiations to organized labor. And this evening, the negotiation between the government side and organized labor has been concluded. So for and on behalf all the teacher unions in the pre-tertiary education, including the Ghana National Association of Teachers, the National Association of Graduate Teachers, we have the Teachers and Educational Workers Union, we have the Coalition of Concerned Teachers Ghana. We hereby direct and ask all our members and wish also to inform them that effective July 14th, today, 2022, in the year of our Lord, we have called off the strike that we embarked upon on the 4th of July.
After a marathon of meetings between the demanding factions, that is organized labor and government, they have now concluded on a 15% cost of living allowance, which is payable by the month of July. Reporting for City News, my name is Kweku Ediamansa.
Well, good news there for, all parties involved in the negotiations. Good news for the teachers who were demanding 20%. Good news for government that they were able to beat it down to 15%. Yeah. But even better news for students who will now have to resume academic activities.
Yeah, rightly so. I agree with you, Tufman. Because, for instance, it's been a very difficult past 2 weeks for both government and all the stakeholders involved. And yesterday on the show, we're emphasizing the need for government and especially the striking parties to meet government halfway. I said that's a piecemeal approach, trying to see or meet each of the striking groups was going to be very difficult for government to do at this particular time. And to be very honest with you, it had moved on from just 4 teacher unions coming together demanding for better opportunities and better living conditions by way of the COLA. It had now become an issue of organized labor because different groups were coming in. I was saying that if government didn't make some stringent efforts to really curb this, at the end of the day, would have been a situation where with each day that passes by, a different group will be springing up. So it's really refreshing news, welcoming news. I hope the teachers will get back to the classroom as soon as possible, because we had some of the situations that were happening in the senior high schools, and they weren't pleasant at all. I mean, with all the challenges happening right now, they're
having to deal with food shortage,
the food shortages in the school. Then now teachers are not teaching. It's a bit problematic, but it doesn't solve everything yet, because mind you, we've heard reports of how now some students now have to turn themselves into cooks and pantry workers in school because of food shortages and the likes. And as a result of that, some students have had to leave school and go home, because what's the point? You can't feed me. Teachers were not coming to school and they had to go home. So it's a very difficult situation for Ghana. Just beyond the COLA issues the teachers were raising, the general standard really in our senior high school, second cycle institutions, for example, have been called into great question. And government needs to start working to ensure that some of these problems are fixed. Because what's the point in having teachers come into the classrooms and now students are now home because they can't, government can't meet their nutritional needs. So for me, it's far from over. It's a far from over cry. But I do want to commend government for showing some good faith in the whole process. Initially, we heard of a 5%, then it was increased to 10%, 10, then now finally we're emphasizing that it was very important that they sort of meet each other halfway. Because
you see, for me, what strikes me or what stands out for me is, you see, an effective date was given, July 1, for commencement of payment of the COLA. But we do not have a date where it terminates, because should COLA was demanded because of the current economic conditions. Should things get better, is government going to continue paying COLA? Or would the same thing come back to bite the government hard when it feels that times are better, and so there's no more the need to pay COLA, but teachers continue to demand it? You see, one union that also demanded COLA and also embarked on a strike is the Senior Staff Association of Universities of Ghana. Now, among their demands was interest accrued on their tier 2 pensions. So you see, I mean, these are some of the things government should be looking at.
The COLA was sort of a leveler, so it was a fair basis for each of the striking groups unions, to come together and demand for something. But I mean, on a case-by-case basis, different groups had very different interests. They were also pushing.
So that's why it's important to have dates where it terminates.
Ends. But you see, in my very young adult life, I don't recall ever a time where, for instance, a group or a union or a labor group have said in the past that at least things are good now. I mean, we've been in the news every Christmas. You hear traders say things are hard. So to a very large extent, I feel it has come to stay, especially with no end in sight for what's happening for the current
and then the global crisis.
The global crisis, COVID-19. Maybe you can say we've sort of found a way to deal with it and live with it. But for the Russia war, for instance, when we don't have an idea when exactly it will end. So it's come to stay to a large extent, but you want government to also do the needful. The needful being that they address the very important challenges that is crippling the economy at this particular point.
Well, on the note of the economy being crippled, we've gone to the IMF. Now, the man that heads the economic management team of Ghana, the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has been speaking on reasons why Ghana had to go to the IMF. Let's take a listen to him.
Government has indicated that the growing energy sector debt is part of the major reasons why it had to seek an International Monetary Fund IMF bailout. This, according to the government, contributed to the country's total debt stock of over $50 billion. Speaking at the launch of Accra's Business School's IT programs on Thursday, the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, partly blamed Ghana's return to the IMF on the Esther Mahama administration, but assured that interventions are underway to restore the economy. City News' Kojo Ajima has more in this report.
The Vice President's comments come after the International Monetary Fund concluded initial discussions with the country on Wednesday. The IMF reaffirmed its commitment to support Ghana. Key among the discussions were the need for Ghana to focus on improving fiscal balances in a sustainable way, ensuring credibility of monetary policy and exchange rate regimes, preserving financial sector stability, and designing reforms to enhance growth, create jobs, and strengthen governance. Speaking for the first time following Ghana's return to the IMF, the Vice President said one of the major reasons, apart from the impact of COVID-19, the rippling effect of the Russia-Ukraine war, and the banking sector cleanup, is the growing energy sector debt, which pushed the country to a total debt of over 50 billion cedis.
In addition to COVID-19, there are two major items of expenditure that are critical in understanding the evolution of the fiscal deficit and the debt stock. And these two items are the banking sector cleanup and the energy sector excess capacity payments. The excess capacity payments of 17 billion Ghana cedis relate to a legacy of take-or-pay contracts that saddled our economy with annual excess capacity charges of close to $1 billion a year. These were basically contracts to supply energy to Ghana way in excess of our requirements at the time. But we were obligated to pay for the power whether we used it or not. The excess capacity payments of this 17 billion includes a 7 billion cedi payment for gas resulting from the signing of an offtake agreement for a fixed quantity of gas with ENI Sankofa on a take-or-pay basis, which was way in excess of what was needed at the time. Not keeping up with the excess capacity payments would have meant throwing the country back into a new bout of doomsday or power outages.
This development, which he blamed on the Mahama government, according to the Vice President, is a major contributor to the country having to go back to the IMF, adding that the Akufo-Addo administration cannot be wholly held responsible.
I should again note that Ghana has been hit with a quadruple whammy. A quadruple whammy. The energy sector excess capacity payments, banking sector cleanup, COVID-19, and the Russia-Ukraine war. We have been hit by this quadruple whammy. And I say again that if you take out the fiscal impact of this quadruple whammy, Ghana will not be going to the IMF for support because our fiscal and debt and balance of payments outlook would be sustainable. Of the four factors, COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war were external, and the other two, the banking sector cleanup and the excess capacity payments, were the result of policies of the previous government. What we are dealing with is a global phenomenon. Let me give you an analogy to make my point. If you ask a carpenter to roof your house, and he roofs this house, and suddenly the roof collapses without any rainfall or wind, suddenly you have a collapsing of the roof. Will you not blame the carpenter who did the roofing? Will you not blame the carpenter? But if the carpenter roofs your house and the roof collapses because there's a tornado and a storm which has blown away roofs and windows and walls of many houses, will you blame the carpenter? Will you blame the carpenter? So, let us understand the context. Let us understand the context. In one situation, you will definitely blame the carpenter. In another situation, you will blame the tornado. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are interested in the way forward.
The Vice President was also hopeful that the country's economy will bounce back due to homegrown solutions the government is about to implement in the coming months. I am Kojo Achman reporting for City News.
Well, it's to an extent refreshing to hear from the carpenter, but should we blame the carpenter?
I mean, interesting analogy there, but then again, when the tornado happens, you have to compare it with the surrounding environment. For some people in our case, the roof, in our case like this, the roof probably went off.
Probably hanging in
the
the
building came down, everything else went down. But you see, it's an interesting thing because if you listen to, for instance, the conversation or you follow the conversations around the IMF and all that is happening recently, one of the very important points that came out is the fact that we had to relook at our debt sustainability analysis. So the IMF said that, or some of the key concerns coming up is that, for instance, we have a huge total debt stock and it's really affecting everything in our country. Sustainable debt in itself is just not high or low your debt is. It's just being able to repay your debt stock. And for a country like Ghana, it's interesting some of the reasons the vice president has alluded for the economic downturn we see right now. So now it's gone beyond just the two we used to hear of.
So I think what he sought to do was to break it down into 4 factors. Two internal, two external.
And he sort of blame the local ones,
on the previous government.
The previous government, which I find very interesting.
That is why I'm asking if we should blame the carpenter.
Because, for example, for the energy sector capacity charges, about 17 billion. He says some sort of 17 billion Ghana cedis went into it. COVID-19.
That's a take-or-pay agreement.
The take-or-pay agreements. COVID-19, some 12 billion went into it. Then you also have so there was COVID, there was the excess capacity charges, and there was the banking sector crisis that had some 25 billion going to it. Now, if you add all of these three, it's just about 54 billion Ghana cedis, according to the vice president, in a region of about $7 billion. And he says that this was borrowed money. And in essence, we had to pay interest of about 8.3 billion on this borrowed money. But see, for the bigger problem for me is that he goes on to compare that for this 54 billion we've borrowed for these three things I've mentioned, the whole of government's flagship programs, 1D, 1F, teacher trainee, free SHS, is just about 15.6 billion Ghana cedis. So he sort of tried to take blame away from the fact that flagship programs of government is not the cost, but you see, it's a very dicey way to go about the situation. Because, for instance, I think the reasons why Ghanaians are complaining is not because of free SHS in its entirety. If you go out to the streets, you hear people say very good things about free SHS. But when, for instance, government embarks on very ambitious drives like the National Cathedral and some other things we've had reasons to complain in the past, I think that is where the anger of Ghanaians, for me, is channeled. And he really didn't even tackle on that particular one. For instance, he mentions the energy sector and excess charges, for instance. And he's saying that we bought more than we needed. But just in 2017, we've read, and I was looking at this earlier today, where the VRA was talking about the fact that, and it was a graphic publication, that we needed 600 more megawatts of power supply. If not, the country was going to go into another energy crisis. So for me, there isn't a consistency in some of the claims the vice president has been raising on this particular issue. And for me, it goes back to the big old problem. Our debt sustainability is really not the best at this level. And the IMF have been very clear on it. Apparently, or we've been hearing that it was one of the main issues that came up when the fact-finding team came into the country to assess some of these things. Our current debt stock is about 400 billion, estimatedly. And for me, that is serious. And you compare it to countries around, it can't be that the carpenter didn't build it well, or any of that analogy was given.
The fundamentals were weak before the tornado came in.
And the managers of the economy didn't probably...
I mean, it's always good to hear from the vice president. Of course, he heads the economic management team. And then prior to the assumption of power by the MPP, he was presented as an economics messiah. And so it's always good to hear from him on such matters. However, after giving us reasons, we want to hear more workable plans towards resolving or reviving Ghana's economy. We've heard from the IMF, and the country director or the IMF representative in Ghana has also been speaking to us, this time specifically on some of government's flagship programs. Let's take a look at that clip as well.
IMF, because its resident representative to Ghana has allayed the fears of the public of a possible cancellation of the free senior high school program under an IMF program. Now, analysts have called for a review of the free senior high school program and other social interventions said to be a major drain on the country's purse. Now, while allaying such concerns of an outright cancellation, Dr. Albert Tonamama in his first interview after the IMF's first engagement, however, knows that the fund will look out for the effectiveness of the program.
It's important to say that you know, free SHS is a revolutionary policy, right? So why cancel it? So it to me, I don't even, you know, it's not even clear why that conversation. It doesn't mean that it's perfectly sustainable and efficient now. So that's a different conversation. But as for the policy, I really don't see why it needs to be canceled. I mean, secondary education, as we know, and we've seen for a lot of studies, is correlated with a better economic development path, right? So to me, there's no debate on whether the policy, you know, needs to stay. The debate is more on, you know, how do we make it sustainable and how do we make sure that we achieve efficiency gains there. And I think, as in any negotiation, it's, you know, I would say it's good to go with you know, really an open mind about this thing. So we've just getting started, right? I think that in terms of taking a second look at where are the leakages, are we achieving the impact that we want, we really need to, you know, allow ourselves to think through everything.
Great, I mean, conversation there, especially coming from the IMF, because I mean, previously IMF you would see as a body that really wouldn't engage in some of these media shenanigans, if I can put it that way. But I mean, there were concerns, genuine concerns, of course, with respect to some of government's flagship programs, especially those that were social interventions, such as the free SHS. So if we're hearing a person like Dr. Tonamama speaking on this and allaying fears to some extent, I think it's really a step in the right direction.
Rightly so too, for the IMF in particular, historically, they've always known to sustain or keep poor policies of government, because at the end of the day, it's the ordinary people they are looking for. If you listen to Dr. Albert Tonamama carefully, he emphasizes for me a lot of what Ghanaians have been saying, and he appears to be on the same wavelength. It's not necessarily about the scrapping of the program, but it is about looking at ways to make it more efficient. And that is what a lot more Ghanaians are calling for. Let's probably review it and look at the loopholes and try and address some of these things. And that is clearly the stance of the IMF country resident in Ghana. When you go back to the statements they released before he granted his interview on the City Breakfast Show, they mentioned that after assessing the economic situation in the country, they were going to relook at, in the near term, policy priorities of the government. And for me, I don't think a project or a policy like free SHS in itself is entirely wrong, but it is the approach or the government strategy in going around it that for me needs a little bit of review. But for the other very ambitious ones, like for example, Agenda 111, in 6 years, how many have you built? And how many are you projecting to build in the remaining 3?
They are abandoned projects.
There are already abandoned projects over there. National Cathedral, for example, I feel like these are the major policies or major projects the IMF will be looking at and reviewing, or if we want to put it for want of better, or maybe cancel or scrap or put on a hold. So I don't think free SHS is going to be greatly changed or reversed for that matter.
Perhaps we can adopt a means testing approach so that we can identify parents who are able to pay and have them pay.
Exactly.
So it can save government a substantial amount of money that can be reinvested, even if in education, but this time in infrastructure. So we improve the quality. It's not that we're educating en masse and then the quality, the outputs that we get does not meet the standards we're looking for while draining the public purse.
In this very studio, we had the finance minister, albeit some time ago, allude to the same thing you are saying. He says that for him, he doesn't understand why a parent in a school, for instance, like a Chimota, should be paying or be allowed to have a free SHS kind of model. So it should be on a case-by-case basis. Maybe government is finding it difficult to do the hard work, because then that is actually where the work is, going into the situation and understanding it on a merit-by-merit issue. But I think the IMF country resident was spot on when he says that, for instance, it's not about scrapping it or taking it away to create fiscal space or putting some money into the system. But it's about looking at ways you can make it more efficient. Mind you, I said IMF programs in the past, you could go through all the years, all the 17 times we've been at the IMF, they sort of had some support for pro-poor policies like LEAP and all of those things. So I didn't expect that Dr. Albert Tunamama was going to say there was going to be a scrapping of it. But of course, it's very important that we review some of these things going forward so that everything begins to fall in place for government.
Right. Let us know what you think. Send us a message via WhatsApp 0550585832, or you can tweet at us at CTTVGH, or you can drop a comment under our live streaming on Facebook, CTTV. Let us know your thoughts, your comments, your contributions to the stories that we're discussing here on CNR Extra. But still ahead, Member of Parliament's Privileges Committee, ABA Fuseni, denies reports that the committee has written to the Electoral Commission to declare the Dom Kwabenya seat vacant. We have the details shortly. Do stay with us.
Creamy Plus is a fully skimmed evaporated milk. Creamy Plus is available in a shop near you.
This message has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Worship Hymn. Mayurami Oklu, in conjunction with the Music Therapy Association of Ghana, a member of the World Federation of Music Therapy, is inviting you to an evening of uplifting worship with the theme Speaking to Yourselves in Psalms, Hymns, and Spiritual Songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. Ephesians 5:19. Come and experience an atmosphere of worship in this concert with Mayurami Oklu, Maulom Bacha, as well as other ministers of song. It's happening at the Makene Church International Headquarters, Oyibi, on Sunday, 17 July 2022 at 6 p.m. prompt. This concert will provide sign language translation for the hearing impaired. Worship Him. It's a night of pure worship. It's your night of redemption. Let's all come to worship Him.
You're welcome back. This is CNR Extra. My name is Nana Tufo-Boate, and I'm here with Jude Mensah Duncan. We're moving into our next story, but we'd like to remind you to send us your thoughts, your comments via WhatsApp on 0550585832, and you can do same via Twitter or Facebook at CTTV. Now, the Privileges Committee of Parliament has wrapped up their sit-ins on the referral by the Speaker on 3 absentee MPs, some members of Parliament who had absented themselves for over 15 sit-ins. Now, after the conclusion, there were reports that really the committee was suggesting or had recommended to the clerk to write to the Electoral Commission to declare the Dom Kwabenya seats vacant. Now, Member of Parliament for Sanarigu ABA Fuseni, who is also a member of the committee, says this is not true. Let's give you the details of that and then we can have a discussion on it.
Let's now take you to Parliament because the minority is kicking against a $1 billion loan currently before the House. At a Finance Committee meeting on Thursday, the minority stalled the approval processes owing to what they call discrepancies between the loan presented to the House and what has been presented to the committee for consideration.
The $1 billion loan sourced from two banks is primarily meant to support payments from the 2022 budget. The Finance Committee considered it on Thursday, but the minority left the meeting unconvinced about several issues with the agreement. Dr. Kislato Forson is the ranking member on the committee.
We've met as a committee. What was before us was for us to consider and approve two tranches of loans. We have considered them in good faith. We have lingering concerns. We have actually brought them out because, first of all, we believe that the document before us has some fundamental defect because what is in the memorandum to Parliament and what is in the loan agreement has some differences in the sense that in one breath, we were called upon to approve a loan of $750 million. But what is in the agreement has two legs, tranche A and tranche B. One is in euro and one is in dollars. So that will mean that Parliament will have to amend what was brought to us.
The National Identification Authority attended upon the House to brief members on the ongoing Ghana card registration exercise.
We had 1 million unused cards from the mass registration, which we are whitelisting and then reusing. So as it is now, we are still using, we have enough that can cater for the registration that is ongoing now. So we don't have any problem with that. We're looking at moving forward when we have to do the registration for the diaspora and then the below 15 years. That is where we see ourselves having some challenges if that is not resolved.
The majority chief whip later at a press briefing bemoaned what he calls the demonizing of the NIA by the minority.
Most of our colleagues it's all of attacks on the NIA. I think it's most unfair. And all of you bear me out. For the past 4 years, we knew where the NIA was. And we know the path they have traversed over the past 4 years. I can personally testify. A number of times I've been to the head office of the NIA, and at a point in time, they could not even boast of one desktop. Today, you can go there for yourself and look at the difference. Also, pry further to adduce budget support and budget contributions that the government has been giving the NIA repeatedly and consistently. So I'm saying simply, we should be careful not to demonize the NIA.
At the press briefing later, MP for Narogo ABA Husseini debunked reports that the Privileges Committee had recommended that Adwoa Safo's seat in Dom Kwabinya should be declared vacant.
Our attention has been drawn to a report in sections of the media to the effect that the clerk of Parliament has been authorized to issue a statement to the effect that the position of Honorable Adwoa Safo has been declared vacant, on the basis of which there should be a by-election, and that is the recommendation of the committee. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's an absolute pathological lie. And I want to stand on behalf of the NDC members of the committee and state the facts of the committee as they are. As we speak, there is no report of the committee.
The Fees and Charges Miscellaneous Bill, which new one, which is increasing the cost of government fees and charges by 15%, as announced in the 2022 budget in November last year by the Minister of Finance, after going through the paces and the processes in Parliament for over 7 months, was passed at the third reading stage today. It means it's been passed. It's law now. All it's left is for the President to sign, put his accent to it, and then government institutions will begin to implement an increment of 15% in its fees and charges across the board. That was passed in the House today. Reporting for City News from Parliament, my name is Stu Kwensokoko.
So that report really captured the entire proceedings of Parliament on Thursday, July 14. But our focus is on the last bit where we had ABA Fuseni, MP for Sanerugu, saying that really there's no report by the Privileges Committee. But I mean, you and I know, Jude, Article 97, Clause 1 of the Constitution.
Clause 1C
Clause 1C is clear on what becomes of the seat of an MP who does not show up for 15 sittings without proper permission
from the speaker. And an appearance on the Privileges Committee to explain. Isn't it interesting how we do our politics in this country? Why does it have to take the minority to come and defend someone who was a deputy majority leader in the last parliament? I mean, it's interesting how our politics play out. It's just simply because it is in the interest of the NDC as a minority to make sure that the situation is the same in parliament. Why am I saying that? We all know the issues with regards to...
It's a game of numbers.
It's a game of numbers. I mean, I had the opportunity to speak with one top-ranking politician, and he made some really interesting remarks. He was telling me that, Jude, for instance, see, it's only in the Bible that, for instance, you say Jesus left the 99 to go and look for the one. The parable of the lost sheep. Yeah. But in politics, if you leave the 99 to go and look for one,
you've lost everything.
You've lost everything, and you are probably not wise because it's a numbers game.
Exactly.
So in parliament, it is playing out for all to see. Yeah. Maybe in our lifetime, we'll probably not even see a hung parliament this close again. So, like I'm saying, it's in the interest of the NDC to make this remain the same. I understand why ABA Fuseni will be vehemently defending Adjoa Safo on this matter to say that their seat has not been declared vacant because their very own Jachi Kwesin too has issues. So if push comes to shove and there's a very serious issue that has to go by voting, some of these things will eventually play out. And also because it shows to a very large extent that, or it appears that the current situation in parliament and by extension in government, because mind you, she's a minister, shows a politically weak leadership for the NDC. So it's a trump card for them. They can go on and campaign and argue that even your minister left office for these number of days, nothing was done about this. Is it a government that takes your concerns very seriously? But Tufman, forgive me, I like the name Tufman. That's fine. I mean, I'll come back to the very main issue and say that if you analyze this very carefully, it's a failing on all the people involved, all the stakeholders involved, parliament, government, and by even extension, Ghanaians. Maybe it's a bit extreme to put Ghanaians in this bucket.
The leadership of the party she belongs to?
Maybe the leadership of the party. Let me just exclude Ghanaians for the time being. But you hear some people, I mean, Ghanaians, because even there was a poll run recently in Dominic Kwabena that said that if she was still to stand for election. Exactly. So, you see, for the issue here is that what was Parliament's approach, or what is the single most important decision they've taken so far? I agree the laws are spelled out clearly in Article 16 of the Standing Orders of Parliament. So it's clear what to do when somebody vacates a seat for 15 days. But what other thing has Parliament done to resolve some of this issue? They took care of the Environment, Science and Technology Committee of Parliament and put her on the Poverty Reduction Committee. And for me, it's very unfortunate that something like that would happen, because if you take care from the Environment, Science and Technology Committee to Poverty Reduction Committee, is it to say those already serving on the Poverty Reduction Committee is there a demotion? Like what is it really? You get it? So for me, it's unfortunate that Parliament has not taken decisive action on this, but we understand that the recommendations from the Privileges Committee is that it would have to go to plenary, then there will be a debate on it from both sides of the House.
That is the game they are playing. I mean, the majority, of course, we had Joe Osewusu, who chairs the Privileges Committee, wanting to go per the dictates of the Constitution and saying that, well, per Article 97, it is clear, and so this is what should happen. Clerk should write to Electoral Commission and declare the seat vacant.
At this point,
but then minority is also of the opinion that, well, it was the speaker that referred the MP to the committee, and so it should come back to the speaker and of course the entire plenary to take a decision on the fate of Adwoa Safo.
It goes back to what you are saying. Politics is about a game of interest, really. So for the MPP right now, or the majority in parliament, they feel like this is not a situation they want to be in, and for that reason they will want this resolved quickly. If it means that it's open up for election for another MPP person to come fill in for it, so be it. But I was saying yesterday that it's whatever is happening right now is unfortunate, and on the part of Adwoa Safo, it marks of disrespect to the institution of parliament, to the institution of the speaker, and by extension Ghanaians, because we have our elected representatives in parliament, and if they call you for some form of questioning or an explanation as to why you've absented yourself, it's only fair that you fill in, but Parliament needs to be doing a lot more. Taking it from the Environment, Science and Technology Committee to Poverty Reduction. It doesn't mean they don't take Poverty Reduction Committee serious, and for that reason we are in all the mess we are in today. So it's very unfortunate, and for me, we need closure to this as soon as possible. It doesn't look likely in hindsight, but eventually will probably come. Another issue, reason I find very problematic with all of this happening is the fact that look at the happenings at the gender ministry. All the problems happening there right now. We don't have school feeding caterers are agitating.
Right.
Leap challenges. They've been on about 1 CD a month or so since 2015. Yeah. So that's like 32 CDs a month. Yeah. It hasn't been reviewed. Yeah. Like so many challenges going on.
Meanwhile, the minister is in US and occasionally appears on TikTok.
We now have to burden the sanitation minister, Honorable Cecilia Dapa, to now...
Which is no mean job. Sanitation works and water. She's already overburdened.
We see her in choppers moving from place to place all the time. Anyway. But it's a difficult position to find yourself in. And for me, we need decisive leadership. And the president needs to act decisively.
Somebody should be cracking the whip.
In a private institution.
This cannot happen.
Even in schools, it won't happen. So why then should it happen in parliament or in government?
All right, let us know what you think. Send in your thoughts and your comments. 0550-585832 on WhatsApp. 0550-585832. But stay with us on CNR Extra when we come back. Meridian Port Service agrees to cede 20% share of container traffic to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority from August 1 after strike by maritime and dock workers. We have the details shortly. Stay with us.
The sisters are back with more chic and spice than ever. Join the League of Exceptional Sisters as they come to the rescue of relationships with the all-new season of Sister Sister. Be it gut-wrenching personal secrets, jaw-dropping partner shenanigans, or the cringe-worthy deeds of family and friends, our sisters will be here to help you weave through the simplest and most complicated relationship issues. Catch the all-new season of Sister Sister starting on Thursday, July 14, 2022 at 7 p.m. on 97.3 City FM and Friday, July 15, 2022 at 9 p.m. on City TV. Sister Sister is sponsored by Kel Kids Toothpaste and the Ghana AIDS Commission.
All right, you're welcome back. This is CNR Extra on City TV. Quickly, let me take a few of your comments and then we can continue. This one says, CNR, you're doing a great job. Please tell the government not to wait for pressure from teachers before paying COLA due them. This is from Weissman Sabie. And this one says, I am Andrews from CMC Tadi. I pray IMF scrap this thing called ex gratia, which can be used for other developmental projects. You can also send in your thoughts and your comments via the number 0550585832. Now let's take you to Tema, where the Maritime and Dock Workers Union engaged in an industrial action to demand 20% of container traffic from the Meridian Port services. We understand an agreement was reached between MPS and the GPHA. We have the details in this report.
The Meridian Port Services has agreed to cede 20% share of container traffic to the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority from August 1, 2022. This was after members of the Maritime and Dock Workers Union of the Trades Union Congress embarked on a 2-day industrial action. The workers of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority on Tuesday commenced the industrial action, resulting in the cessation of sailing and berthing of vessels at the port. The issue, according to a statement issued by the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority, has since been resolved. Fred Duho has more in this report.
According to the workers, their action has been necessitated by the refusal of the Meridian Port Service MPS to hand over 20% of container traffic to the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority during the exclusivity period of 10 years as directed by Cabinet in 2019. According to them, this has denied the state of the needed revenue. They embarked on an industrial strike amidst drumming and dancing on Tuesday and Wednesday. It took the intervention of the police and some top management officials to calm the situation. The chairman of the Junior Staff Workers Union, Emmanuel Ahin, addressed the aggrieved workers.
Almost 2 years out of 10 years, 20%, Mama, 2 years. Oh no. What year we are now? Assembly and now 20 years, 20 years, 20% of your friend's agreement, Mama, 2 years. Now 2 years, now start implementation. First August. Now, no problem. Let me buy a papa and I papa. And know that I make sure say I can find out. Then we select a day. Papa. Into Mama 2 years. Into about end 2024. According to the penny for no. And to say 2 years in bedroom. You bet me apply for extension.
The Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority, Michael Luguje, encouraged the workers to rest assured that their interest will be served.
You see, our name is in the shipping place for the wrong reasons. Because this very action has disrupted all the shipping schedules our vessels had. And peace. And just as we told you yesterday, that engagements were already ongoing way before yesterday's action, and that we expected a result by tomorrow morning latest. I am here with my team on behalf of the Honorable Minister and the board to inform you that just as we promised you yesterday, we have this letter from the MPS. You are not allowed to take it to the media. You are all part of maritime operators. And vessels are going to come with containers that are going to be apportioned along this 20% to 8%. There's a lot of work that has to be done as to how the distribution will be done. And that is why it cannot be immediate. But the most important thing is that we have this letter here granting the 20%. Now, I heard someone asking, you want to see it. Don't forget, listen very carefully. This is an agreement between us and partners. We cannot right now put this letter in public domain for it to be written about. But listen, your leaders can call at my office. They will read it word for word. No, wait. Your leaders can call at my office and read the letter.
Management of the Ghana Ports and Harbour Authority on Thursday, July 14, issued a press statement assuring maritime workers and dockers and all stakeholders that it had agreed with MPS to take the 20% container traffic from August 1, 2022. It was stated in a statement that GPHA and MPS have worked out technical and financial details needed for the implementation of the agreement. It further stated that calm has since been restored at the Tema port and about 11 vessels have sailed and berthed. The maritime workers and the dockers, which forms part of the Trades Union Congress, are demanding a release of 20% of the containerized services at the Tema port to the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. My name is Fred Duo, reporting from Tema for City News.
So really a matter of directing container traffic to either terminals operated by the GPHA, Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, or MPS, Meridian Port Services Limited. It's just about cargo throughput and, of course, the revenue you will generate from handling or providing container handling services. That's vessel berthing, docking, unstuffing, unpacking, and all that. But my concern here really has to do with the difficulty in agreeing on the 20%, because MPS itself, although private, has some level of government ownership.
Yeah. And for you are in Tema, so you probably, I'm sure you grew up there and you know the issues even better. But if you recall, somewhere around last year, there were some international publications from some online news platforms about how, for instance, Bolloré Shipping, if you remember, Mr. Vincent Bolloré has sort of seized the entire ports of our country. So there's been a lot of issues with our ports, and for me it's not surprising at all, especially with all that is going on with organized labor in the country currently. It was least surprising seeing that for instance, the junior port workers, for instance,
maritime and dock workers
are raising concerns about some of these things. And for me, it's so unfortunate that it had to take junior workers to bring some of these very important things into the limelight. Can you imagine a whole country, your own port, and they are now seeing only 20%, and you have to take junior staff
to agitate for you to...
The director of Ports, Mr. Michael Luguje, I heard him on Point of View some time ago, and for me, it seems that some of these concerns are recurring year on year, and nothing really substantive seems to be done on some of the issues that these port workers have been raising. So it's unfortunate, and coming in at least it helps mitigate the problem. 20%.
At least we've seen an end in sight, and of course from August 1 we'll see MPS ceding some 20% of container traffic to the GPHA. But thank you so much, Jude Mensah Duncan of the City Newsroom. Always a pleasure having you on CNR Extra. Many thanks to you for watching, and of course many thanks for your comments. My name is Nanatufo Boateng. Many thanks for watching CNR Extra here on City TV. Bye-bye.